Okay, dropping y'all straight into the deep end. The first person to eat eggs absolutely thought that they were going to eat an immaculately smooth and white piece of poop. It's just when you're a caveman, there are only two conclusions you can come to while looking at a bird. One, that sometimes white stuff comes out and eventually it hatches into a new, smaller bird. Or two, sometimes white stuff comes out and it just lays there. Based on the human experience, this guy has definitely seen people both give birth and use the bathroom with the same general area. So he absolutely has to think that when this white thing doesn't eventually turn into a new bird, that the bird just decided to poop this time. And it smells like poop because by the time he can confirm it's not going to hatch like the other eggs, it just stays still while the other ones have all finished cracking open. It's absolutely rotten and it smells bad, and he put it in his mouth anyway. I think we have to cancel Glug, guys. I know he doesn't understand basic syllables or how fertilization works, but the man's nasty. Hey y'all, welcome to my first vlog, a claim that is technically a lie, because about a year ago, I was putting up vlogs on here infrequently, but then something happened. Golly gee willikers, I hope nothing bad comes back from the 1920s this 20, like incredibly infectious diseases or huge economic disasters. But that would require people to do something stupid like ignore the science behind vaccines or ignore the rapidly shrinking middle class, and that'll never happen. Moving on.
You could have saved everyone, Turner. Why did you forsake your gift?
I think we can all agree that we'd rather pretend that this one is the first. Like, no one wants to think about irony at 7 a.m. in the morning. I decided to make a vlog for 3 reasons. Number 1, I really don't feel like doing any reaction videos right now. I had this new reaction series planned that fell through, and it's just, I did all this editing and polishing for something you guys will never see for no reason, so I don't even want to think about reaction videos for the rest of the week. The second reason is that I am away on medical leave from college. It's mostly brain stuff, so I can move around and do tasks and things, but I'm not really fit to go to class, and I'd like to have something to do. Vlogging seems like it'd be a fun thing to try. And then number 3, I'm constantly forgetting that I do cool stuff, like all the time. I'll privately complain to myself, I totally wasted this week, I didn't do anything interesting. And then my dad will remind me that I have sword fighting classes on Friday, which will be in this video. But before I get to those clips, I'd like to get to the main activity of this video, which is assembling a mannequin. Here's the rub. I want to wear cool suits all the time like Janelle Monáe, a little less bold and a little more fancy. I don't mean that in a passive-aggressive way to Janelle Monáe, by the way. I just want to clarify that in the very likely case she sees this video. I mean, I get about 3 views per every time I post, so pretty popular, pretty much a big deal. She's definitely gonna see this. I just like more toned down colors like gray and black and dark red and champagne. Not to sound like a 21-year-old grandma, but if a piece of clothing is too busy or the colors are approaching sort of neon, it just hurts my eyes. I have a 60-40 chance of possibly developing a migraine. If you want a sort of like idea of what the aesthetic of those pieces of color, pieces of fabric will look like once they're sewn in the clothing, I want to go for something that's vaguely royal Cory, and that goes for other pieces of clothing that aren't suits that I also want to make. I want to be fancy. I want to be fancy. Even when it comes to more basic shirts, I'd like for it to be a little fancy. Like, I'd like to have some really basic cotton shirts for lying around, but it still has some really pretty embroidery like what I've shown so far. So anyway, in pursuit of that goal, I saved up for an adjustable mannequin, which is a mannequin that you can adjust to your exact measurements using these little knobs it has on the side. I'm really excited to see how it works, so let's just jump right in. I wish I had like a really big shirt or something so I wouldn't have to wear pants. I become YouTube famous, a goal that is super realistic and practical and is definitely going to happen. I'm going to have a cool organizer for all these pretty pieces of thread and fabric like jersey knit and polyspan and like denim twill. I don't need to explain what those are, right? Like, we all have our favorite types of fabric. That's like a super normal thing to do and have. Like, if I went up to a guy and I asked him his thoughts about cotton, he'd have enough information to carry on an entire conversation. You get it, right? Anyway, I'd like to talk about an equally as thrilling topic, Junji Ito. You heard about this man? You heard about this son of a bitch? I stumbled across a super eye patchwork video about Junji Ito and his horror manga series. So I started Googling his name, and all this stuff came up about his ability to inspire fear and to horrify. He's like a really renowned, horror storyteller and illustrator. Everyone seems to really love him. So I said to myself, I don't have anything else to do today. Sure, I'll check some of his stuff out. I'll read it. And you want to know what happened? Nothing. At first. Super Eye Patch Wolf mentioned one of Junji Ito's few reoccurring characters, Tomie, who is like this horrible teenage girl that tortures the people around her by manipulating them, helped by this sort of aura of untouchable beauty that seems to either entrance people or put them off. But in the end, it always seems to make people hate her. I immediately decided, okay, that's the one I'm gonna read, because I like continuations of things. Like, whenever a show has a reboot, like a year after it ended, and the fans are all like, who's asking for this? I'll be like, yeah, they're totally running things into the ground. Hey, do you think that they're gonna make the redheaded murderer blonde this time? That would be cool, right? I read the entire Tomie series, and even though I thought it was really good and there was obvious talent in the pages, I just didn't think it was that scary. I thought it was super interesting, and I was hanging on until the very last sentence, very last illustration. But I didn't see how people thought it was terrifying. I figured maybe the Tomie series just didn't do it for me. I needed to read another story. So I pulled up another story I happened to mention, which is called The Enigma of the Amigara Fault. Same story. Didn't think it was scary. And then it was time to turn the lights off. You know when you're waiting to pass out in bed and you remember that mysterious lady at the side of the road who grabbed you by the sleeve and said, "Beware, the night is dark and deep and full of terrors." So you're like, screw it. I'll stare into the dark of my bedroom until I can fall asleep. I've got time to kill. And then you start to see shapes. I swear to God, I started having flashes to the illustrations when I was literally anywhere doing literally anything. It was like the corner of my eye nonsense too. Like the stress hallucinations were trying to be cute. It was like, even though I didn't find the stories consciously scary, my body recognized something wrong with the illustrations themselves instinctively, so it just refused to let them go. It lasted for a week and a half. What? Did you think I was going to show you some of the images? Why would I remind myself of something I was struggling to forget by Googling images for this video? Have you been listening to anything I've said? God, pay attention! This was surprisingly easy. You want to hear something equally as disturbing as Junji Ito? 4 zebras got loose from a Maryland zoo, and they still haven't found them. Number 1, they're zebras, but number 2, it's Maryland. Isn't it 4 feet long, and you can't find them? Just turn around in a circle. I think I'm gonna have to remeasure myself. I just checked my measurements card, and I'm not sure if they're still accurate. This is so cool. And that's it. Sorry we're laying down again. I started to get kind of dizzy and nauseated. Clearly that was the main event. The most interesting part of sewing is the part that doesn't involve any pretty fabric or thread or even planning. The coolest part to see is done, and unless you're interested in boring sword fighting, you can go home. We can all go home. It's time to go home. I'm probably going to bring up projects involving this adjustable mannequin in the future. I'll show you in other vlogs. But without further ado, let's get to the swords.
So this move I'm getting some well-needed instruction in is called the ox guard. The sword fighting type I'm studying is Germanic longsword, and ox guard guards any upper openings on the left and right sides of the body. The way it's held puts a lot of blade between you and your opponent, which in this case is the very deadly Firestone Tire. By putting something between you and this on-road, off-road, multifaceted monster, it means you're further away from them, which is good, because if you're too close, then their sword goes through you. And typically that's a bit uncomfortable. I knew a guy who got shanked in the stomach, and he said Pepto-Bismol did not help. The way you hold it also means your body and sword are in a good position to absorb the force of your opponent's blows. If this cowardly tire was fighting me with a blade, once my sword connected with theirs in this guard, I would then try to move forward with my back foot and make their sword slide off, then try and strike them while they still had this small opening that I created. This is my first time really trying it though, which is why I'm so bad, but I get better at it in the last clip.
I know my interests are boring and milquetoast, but I hope you will at least consider hitting that subscribe button so you can keep up with my antics far into the future. If you don't want to and you think I should get bent for even asking, wow, those are some really intense emotions. I don't know why you would say that. I think you need a therapist. But just in case you can't afford one, you can check in the description for some links to some vlogs that I really like and some vloggers who are probably like way better than me. So that'll serve as a really nice palate cleanser for you. There's also the chance that you're watching this from a playlist I made on my channel, in which case you don't even have to click anything. Just let autoplay take the wheel. Thank you for entertaining my antics, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
And don't forget to check out my Patreon in the description for some cool perks.